Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Today's presentation is Go by Flood by Snyder Specialty. I'm the host, David King. I'm joined by Lloyd Sabatelli with Go by Flood. We're going to get started in about 1 minute, just to allow some additional people to join. So it's again 12:01, we'll get started. So give us just a moment, we'll get going. Thank you. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 12:01. Again, my name is David King. I'm with Appulate. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Appulate, and I'm joined by Lloyd Sabatelli with Go by Flood. You also may hear the name Snyder Specialty used today. It's also part of Lloyd's company. So without further ado, what I'm going to do here in just a moment is I'm going to make Lloyd presenter. Are you ready, Lloyd?
I am ready.
Okay, just 1 moment here. All right, you are going to be presenter here. All right, there'll be a button on this interface there. You'll see it says share screen. Just make sure you're not sharing anything or have the ability for anybody to see anything confidential.
Okay, that's fine. It's first going to be a verbal discussion about what we do, as more than me having to share my screen. So we'll take it from there.
Okay, great.
Okay, so hello everyone. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Lloyd Sabatelli, as David had mentioned. I own an MGA facility called Snyder Specialty. We've been Lloyd's cover holders for the past 20 years. And basically, we've leveraged our years of experience in Lloyd's and our relationship in Lloyd's to basically develop our own private flood product, residential flood, in the Lloyd's marketplace. We've been working on this for several years. The market of choice that we've decided to use for our flood product is actually Hiscox. Many of you may already be familiar with Hiscox as a flood writer. We do a lot of other business with Hiscox as well. But as far as feeling comfortable with the paper that your flood policy would be issued on for your clients, Hiscox has been doing this for about 10 years now, writing private flood. Their book is about 120 million in premium with about 94,000 policies. So they're not new to the game. They're looking to expand throughout, well, they already write in every state in the US except for Alaska and Hawaii. But beyond that, they're looking to expand their writings in any other individual states within the United States. There is a huge opportunity right now in flood. We know what's happening in Florida. It can happen anywhere in the country as far as flood is concerned. NFIP right now writes between $47 billion and $59 billion in premium. And the private marketplace, I'm sure some of you are using some other private flood products that are out there, is only 1.35 billion in total. So there's a lot of opportunities of what we can do. And we want to assist you in doing that because we have a very automated API-driven product where we've layered multiple APIs in our system to make it as easy as possible and for you to answer the least number of questions. And there is really no need to really understand what NFIP is about, how NFIP gets rated to be able to work with our product. As far as what we write, so we're looking to write primary, secondary, seasonal, tenant occupied, or vacant risk as well in our residential product. And we could do that from a 1-family up to a 3-family dwelling. We write inland as well as coastal properties. And as far as limits are concerned, we could write a dwelling limit up to 2.25 million and a TIV on a risk of up to 2.5 million. And I say that because we could do contents up to 70% of that dwelling limit. We automatically give another structures limit of 10% of the dwelling limit as a separate limit. It's not part of the limit. We also have the option for 20% of loss of use, which could be used towards additional living expense if it's an owner-occupied property, or towards loss of income if it's a rental property. We include basement contents of $15,000, which is definitely a benefit for those that do have basements. We also offer that full-fledged replacement cost policy where you are going to have a policy that looks very similar to a homeowner's. We have the dwelling, other structures, contents, loss of use, or we could have a matching NFIP type policy is what we offer, where you could have the $250,000, $100,000 contents policy, still going to have a separate 10% limit for other structures. But a lot of times what we find is that people want to just match what NFIP is offering as opposed to offering a full replacement cost policy. One of the other benefits of our policy is that we only have a 7-day waiting period. If there's if it's just someone buying a policy and it's not for a loan closing and there's no existing policy in place. Ordinance or law. So this is an issue a lot of times in areas where you have older homes. The NFIP gives $30,000 total, but the reality is there's certain requirements you have to meet, what percentage of the house is damaged, if there's prior losses to the property. Our policy provides $30,000 or 5% of the dwelling limit, whichever is greater, and there's no special triggers for that coverage to be enacted like you would have with the NFIP. I guess the other main thing that that we do offer, which is I guess the most important part of when you're selling any insurance policy, is commission. Our policy we do pay out 15% commission, and we also offer the option to e-pay the net premium to our office because we would be agency bill. So at the same time that you could bind the policy, you actually could pay the premium with us net using e-pay with no fees into your agency as long as you're using a checking account. Basically, that is a wrap up of what we do. What the best way to handle some of the other questions that I know you're going to have is to let David run through some examples of how to use the system, and then I'll jump in and give some insight on how to answer some of those questions or what those issues might be as they come up.
Great, thanks, Lloyd. Okay, so everybody, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take a presenter back here. Give me just a moment. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate everybody how to actually use Appulate. Some of you may be veterans with Appulate. Some of you may have never used our platform before. So what I'm going to do is kind of start you with where to get started here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to appulate.com, which is going to bring you to a page that looks like this. Just go ahead and go to login. You may not realize it, but you may already have an Appulate account. Most of you that received this email to join this webinar today may already have an account. So what we're going to do here first thing is forget password. Go ahead and put your email address in that you used, that you received the email invitation for today's webinar on. Go ahead and put that in here and hit reset password. If it says you do not have an account, it's really easy. Just hit sign up here and walk through it. Just two little pages of information here, and it'll get you started. And then once you're in, let's go ahead and get going here. We'll hit login, and we're kind of brought to our main kind of a landing screen. From here, there's two things that can really benefit you. Now, with a flood, we don't really need to bring an Accord in if we don't want to. But if you do a lot of personal lines and you want to bring in like an Accord 80 so that some data rolls in, what we can do is we can go to our Uplink software and we can download that. So go to Tools, we go to Uplink, and just so everybody knows, everybody that's here today is going to get a copy of this video. So if you forget all these steps that I'm showing you here today, we're going to make sure that you get a copy of this on a YouTube video so you can watch it back, slow it down, whatever you need to do to help you get through this. So I'm going to go ahead and click this here. And then from here, you're going to choose your agency management system that you're going to want to use. And then what you'll simply do is you'll just click download. Now, if you're on a Mac, this will recognize you're on a Mac. So it'll just offer the software. As you can see here, I've just downloaded it. And so it says set up Appulate Uplink. I would just click this link here and it'll start the installation. Now, a few things to note for everybody. This does require Windows 7 and newer. Most computers, this is no problem. Mac OS 10, 11 and newer. And then additionally, if you're a larger organization, you may be on a Citrix network. And you'll probably know if you are or not because it doesn't allow you to install software. In that case, you would need to contact your IT department to get assistance with installing this. You just need to let them know. If there's any issues, you can refer your IT department to me and we can give all the certificate information and whatever's necessary. But once that's installed, and one other last thing to mention as well, it does install some software into Outlook for you to be able to use our Uplink software. So you do need to close Outlook in order for this installation to go through. But once that's complete, then what we can do is now you can go into your agency management system and you can tell it to print that Accord 80. So in my case here, I'll just use an example Accord. So let's say I have this Accord here. This is a workers' comp. This isn't applicable, but from here you would just hit print, and you would now see instead of your regular printer, you'll now see this thing called Appulate Uplink. This will work either in your email, an Accord you have on your desktop, or additionally, if you have one in your agency management system and you've told it to print, right? So you would choose this Uplink driver. In our case today, I'm just going to manually input the data, but I did want to share with you how to bring that data in. Okay, so if we're going to do one without bringing the data in and just do a manual one, it's very easy. We're back at that main page. You can just hit Appulate 13 to bring you back here. I'm going to hit Create New Insured. Now, it's going to ask me for commercial or personal. I'm going to switch to personal. And just here, anything you see this little red asterisk in is mandatory. So in this case, I'm going to just do a Joe test. Nothing else is mandatory to get started. So there I go. I've added that insured. Now, to manually create a quote, we're going to click the blue over here, Request New Quote. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select the line of business. Here we go, personal flood. We're going to choose an effective date. This effective date needs to be within 30 days. So we're going to roll this back to, let's do 10/1. There we go. And if you notice, there's nothing else here that's required. So we'll hit continue. Okay. Now, we could continue to add more information, but in this case, we're just going to go right to the quote because it's going to ask us information we need. So we'll go to quote request here. And now we see this button here. It says it's a plus button. It says add markets. This is really easy, everybody. All we're going to do is click this and you're going to type go by flood, all one word. Now you're going to see this one right here. I'm going to use our testing account so that it doesn't push the production line. So this right here is what you're going to want to select, go by flood. I'm going to include it also, right? So you're going to see this right here. In my case, we're going to use this one just to test on today. So all you got to do to get started is click this start quote. And then what we see up here, we see we've got several questions, 5, 7, 3, and 1. Now, these are required questions in order to advance. So there's two things we can do from here. If we know the information, we can simply add it in here. But if we want to ask our insured, we have a really great feature called Ask Insured, where I can simply just click on this. I can follow some simple steps here. So we'll do Joe test again, and then we'll do testing at, okay, we'll just add a few lines in here. We'll go next. And then as you notice here, what we've got, so I can unselect all these or I can select what I want. But what I'm doing is I can build a questionnaire set for my customer to answer for me. So we can go here, coverage. Let's say I want to have them answer all the coverage questions, but you can knock things out and add any questions you want here. So we can even preview it before it's sent to the customer. So this is what the customer would see here. You know, it's got my contact information up here for my agency. And then here's those questions that I just selected for the customer. They would receive something similar to this. And then what would happen is there'd be a save button for them. They'd hit save. And the great thing is those questions are then loaded back up in the system for you. So you don't need to call them or email them for questions. It just automatically adds them to your account. But in today's situation, we're going to go ahead and just manually enter them ourselves. So one great little tool that helps us do that is show required questions only. So it kind of skips the things that aren't required. So in our case, we're just going to put an address in here. Oh, let's do some place that I know that will work. And we'll do, actually, let's do this. We'll let it search for us. 12215. Come on, search for me. All right. Let's put something in here. There we go. We'll just put we'll put something in here like this. Okay. And then there we go. Sounds good to me. If the primary address name is mailing, sure, let's do that. What is the construction? We'll say it's frame. Is it,
So I
just,
just want to add, David, that the
yeah,
way the
go ahead.
API is set up is a lot of times, 80% of the time when you start entering that information, we have APIs set up to pull a lot of the underwriting information specific to risk. So even some of these limited questions won't even come up to have to be answered because the system's going to answer them automatically. When it doesn't, it gives you the option to answer them like you're doing right now.
Great. Thank you for that, Lloyd. Yeah, we'll just keep moving through here with square footage. We'll put 2,800. We'll make it a new build, 1 story, not elevated. We'll say value replacement cost. We'll put it at 250. Personal property. We'll put it 100,000. We'll do replacement cost. We'll do slab. No basement because it's a slab, obviously. Any claims? We'll say no. And there we go. So now we've got no red left. At this point here, we just hit request quote. Now this is going to take a moment here to process this information, but what it's going to do here is it's going to push this data over to Go by Flood, and then what the Go by Flood's going to do is they're going to reach back out to you with a quote. Now, Go by Flood is what we call an open brokerage on Appulate, meaning that anybody can get a quote without getting an appointment. However, in order to bind, obviously you're going to need that appointment. And as Floyd mentioned earlier, they've got great rates, 15%. That's a fantastic rate for flood. So as you can tell here, it took a moment for it to get through. So at this point here, what you would do is you would wait for Go by Flood to get back with you on that quote. Now I've been assured by Lloyd that we have Kyle, who's on this call today. Kyle's going to monitor these daily, possibly even more than that, more regular than that. So expect pretty quick response times with these, everyone. So if your current flood provider is really slow to respond, this could be a great way to get quick responses. All right, and that's it, everybody, for submitting with Go by Flood and the Appulate system. I'm going to open it now to any questions that you may have. We do have a question section, and I'm going to start there. So let me go ahead and unshare my screen here for just a moment. Or actually, we'll just pause it right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go down to questions. Let me knock these out. Looks like we've got a first question. Brenda has asked, do y'all quote commercial also? So that'll be to you, Lloyd.
Yeah, so we do have the ability. We will be rolling that out somewhere in the future. It's not 100% built into our current system, so that's the reason why we're not offering it up front right now. But it is something that you guys see from us in the near future. And once we have it set up on our side, it will be available on the Appulate side as well.
That's great. Thank you, Brenda. Great question. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, here we go. We got Brett Custer. Sorry, I'm new to this. What is the relationship between Appulate, Go by Flood, and Snyder Specialty? So I can answer part of this, and then Lloyd, if you want to chime in. So our relationship with Appulate and Go by Flood is we're providing a technology solution for Go by Flood to acquire more customers through our network of agents. Right, we have a very large 250,000 agents use Appulate, so a very large network of agents. But also, this is enabling them to get their name out more. So it's a great way for us both to work synergistically between the two. If Lloyd, you want to explain the what's
Yes.
Go by Flood and Snyder, that'd be great.
Yeah, so basically, we developed Go by Flood to stand on its own, separate from what Snyder Specialty does. Snyder Specialty is an MGA based in the Northeast. We don't write the other coverages that we do, which are mostly Lloyd's products throughout the whole country. Go by Flood is a countrywide program for just flood. So we developed it as a separate entity to do its own thing. I'm not saying that we couldn't help you guys on some of the stuff that Snyder Specialty does as well, but the only thing that Go by Flood does, obviously, is flood. And for us, participating in the Appulate platform, as David said, it certainly gives us the opportunity to reach a lot more agents than we normally would see. So since we're so technology driven, those agents that prefer to operate in that environment, we're there as a vendor operating on that platform. And if someone's 100% opposed to using Appulate, or that's not what their thing is, we can have a conversation about operating outside of it. But obviously the point of this whole discussion is to be using the Appulate platform as a way to access our product.
Yeah, great question, Brett. Got it. And Go by Flood uses Hiscox for their flood offering, Brett asked?
Yes, that's correct. We use Hiscox.
Great. Hopefully it
So
answers that for
obviously,
you, Brett.
there are a lot of markets writing flood with different Lloyd syndicates. The paper that you use does make a difference. The reason why we've basically partnered with Hiscox is, with all the disasters and with all the changes in the marketplace, Hiscox has been a strong, steady partner when it comes to flood. There are a lot of syndicates in London that were all gung ho about writing flood, and then they got out of flood. And that's a dangerous game to be playing for you as agents, because obviously, if you're taking someone out of the NFIP that maybe had a high grandfathered rate, it still was grandfathered. So once you move them out, that deal is done. If they have to go back to NFIP, which would never be the case with our product, they'd be going back at a higher rate, and you're going to have irate insureds when it comes to that. So for us, we wanted to partner with somebody that's in it for the long haul, not just in for the quick buck. And there are even certain territories in the US where Hiscox is lower their rates because they're looking to expand their write more business. So to me, that's key. I'm always more concerned about how you're placing it and with who than just getting someone a lower price. It's not only about the premium, it's about the security that you're offering, because obviously what we're selling is a promise to pay. And you want to make sure that's with a carrier that you know that's going to pay a claim.
That's great. Thank you, Lloyd. Another question by Brett for you, Lloyd. If we get Hiscox through another quoting platform, it could be different because of a different Lloyd's contract? Question mark.
It would be very similar. The only difference really should be, for the most part, the ease of possibly using our product over theirs. We will guarantee that if our system gives you a quote, it will be bindable. It's never going to happen that if our system generates a quote, that we'd come back and say, sorry, yeah, this one's not going to work. Like, our system is set up that all of the features are met and all the questions give you green lights. You're going to get a quote that's bindable, as opposed to having to refer it, waiting for a response. Maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't fit. So we wrapped our technology around the Hiscox API so that there is none of those situations, which I know some people might have dealt with in the past with other facilities.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Brett says thank you for the info and sounds like a great option. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, this is a new partnership. Go By Flood just launched a few weeks ago on Appulate. We just finished all the development. This is their very first webinar with us. So it's a brand new partner of ours. So this is the first real exposure that they've had on the platform. So, and as I mentioned earlier, Kyle, who's not on this side, but he's in the meeting here today, is going to monitor those emails. So again, I encourage everybody, if you've got some flood business, just go ahead and push it through here, get a quote. Let's, see how quick the response times are, if that's something you're really looking for.
And I would say keep trying us, because not every risk will be the absolute perfect fit, but it's an easy system to use. It obviously will protect your E&O, especially with what's going on in the industry today. But that 10th one and 20th one might be a perfect fit. It's different. Every risk is different, and everyone is going to end up with a different rate. So just because one risk in one neighborhood may not have the most competitive rate that you were looking for or what you're comparing to, the next door neighbor house can. And anyone that writes flood insurance, even through NFIP, knows that that's the case. It's very specifically driven to that block and lot number of that house, the way Hiscox does their rating. So keep trying, and if there's any questions that come up or you're not sure on how to handle something, certainly reach out. I would also say we could do 2.25 million on a house, but a house that has a $5 million replacement cost is not going to fit into the program. It would have to be that the RCV of the dwelling itself is below the dwelling limit that you're requesting, or at the dwelling limit requesting. So it is geared towards a higher value home, but not something that's like a $5 million house is not going to fit. So I don't want someone to get discouraged if you have that situation that you're getting a declination. It's going to be probably more about the replacement cost of the house than anything else. I just figured I'd mention that as well.
Yeah, Brett had another question here for you, Lloyd. Do you guys do manufactured homes?
Manufactured homes, no. That would be a declination.
Okay. Good questions, Brett. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other questions about Go By Flood's program? Maybe you have specific risk questions, or maybe you've been declined by another vendor and you want to see if If you can get this through here, that'd be a great time to ask these questions, everybody. All you got to do is go down to the question section and just type it in, and we're happy to answer it for you. There we go. TL, what about condos?
Individual condo units, no, we don't have an option for that. It would have to be a full-fledged house in order to write it. And obviously, a condo building would be commercial, and that we're not, it's not available on the system yet. But it will be. But individual units, unfortunately, no.
Great, thank you. Alice has a really great question. This is something I'd like to know. Do you write insurance if there was a flood in the area in the last 2 years?
So the question really wouldn't be so much if there was a flood in the area, but whether or not there was damage to the house. If there was no damage to the house, even if there was a flood in the area, that wouldn't preclude us from writing it at all. We don't have an issue if an area itself has sustained flooding situation. But as long as there was no damage to the house or there was no claim for the house, there would be no issue with us being able to write that.
Do you have just a question I'm going to ask that maybe nobody has thought of asking yet? Recent claims, is there a dollar amount or a number of claims that your limit at?
It's really whether or not there was a claim. Dollar amount really doesn't come into play. It's a matter of whether or not there was a claim. I would say if you had somebody, I mean, typically the system's going to say no if there was a claim. But if it's more than 5 years ago, that would be a non-issue. It's going to be more of the fact that there were recent claims. Obviously, Hiscox doesn't want to be picking up damage from a prior claim that recently happened that obviously that there was no coverage for, and now someone's trying to make a claim for it going forward, because it would be hard to distinguish it between a new and a prior claim if there was no repairs made to the property. So anything that's within the last 5 years where there's been damage, that's probably going to be a declination. But if it's older than that, that wouldn't be a problem. The other thing to be aware of, like our definition of flood, of what the trigger for the policy is different than NFIP. NFIP, it's your house, excuse me, and at least 2 other houses around you have to be inundated with water to trigger the policy. That's not the case for our policy. It just has to be your house that has a flooding situation, not water backup, but an actual flood, where if it's just your house that's affected, the policy will trigger, which wouldn't be the case if it was NFIP.
Yeah, so like different.
Thank you. Kyle added on here, if you enter info in the system that's prohibited, they will automatically be declined. Yeah, great bring up there, Kyle. So in that questionnaire that I was going through earlier, that when we were going through the questionnaire, everybody, any of those questions that if I answer them in a manner that is not what the system is expecting, it's immediately going to give you feedback that it's not accepted. So kind of like what Lloyd here was saying, if I had a claim, it's going to decline it if I say yes, right? It's going to automatically kind of give you that feedback. So that's I forgot to mention that earlier. A question from Frank here. Do you guys offer excess flood coverage over NFIP or another writer?
We have the ability to do excess flood. We haven't been marketing it to a high level just because of the fact that we haven't had much success writing excess flood. Most people are looking for the private flood for a full limit that have approached our program. But if somebody really had a need for excess flood, they could discuss that with us on a case-by-case basis, and we certainly could do something to satisfy that need. But we've seen mostly people looking for a full limit private policy just because usually it works out to be more competitive if you're putting the full limit on the one policy instead of splitting it between NFIP and a private flood excess.
Great. TL asked another question. Can you write for tenants, personal property only?
That's a good question. I don't believe so, but I would say that TL should send an email and we could get a definite answer for you on that. If contents, we haven't really written any. I mean, I know it's something I've done in the past with NFIP, but it's not something that has come up in private flood. So if you send us a direct email afterwards, we could definitely look into that as an option if you feel that you have a need for that market segment.
Great. Next person, we have Alice had a question here. This is a pretty good one. My current carrier will not quote in this area for a 5-year period because of the flood in 2022. I want to be sure that I can quote new business or houses that have been repaired after the flood without going to NFIP.
So we're talking about houses that actually, I mean, I would say you could, but you're talking about houses that have actually had, you said 2020?
2022, so that would be within the 5-year period, right?
Yeah, so that might end up being a declination, but on those, I would want to see that you at least try to submit a couple of those. You'll kick back, and then we could go to management if they'll see if in Hiscox, if they can make exceptions when there's actually, we have proof of repairs. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, is proof of repairs and what the elevation is of the house to consider something like that. Is a possibility. Typically, anything with a prior claim is an immediate declination, but there's something in this case, since the house has been repaired, with knowing the extent of what those repairs were, maybe the house was raised. That would be a different scenario than something that just is exposed to repetitive loss situations.
Looks like Kyle added on here. It looks like personal property only policies are prohibited per Hiscox. So looks like that's unfortunate. And it looks like
typically you're not going to find it in the private marketplace, but I've never been asked of it before, so I figured we'd find out. So Kyle did the job that he needed him to do, and he checked it out for us while we're on the call.
Yeah. Alice, you're welcome. We're really glad you're here asking these questions. Thank you. This has been really good, everybody. We're right at 30 minutes on the meeting time. Any other final questions? This has been really good, everybody. Thank you for these questions. We're going to give one more minute here, and then we're going to wrap it up if we don't get any more questions here. We'll give everybody some time back today.
Yeah, I just want to reach out again and just say to everyone, give us a try. Any questions, reach back out. But it's the kind of thing, flood is not always going to be the same. Where the risk is located makes a difference. So there'll be some areas you'll hit. I've had agents that tell us the same thing, that they had home runs based on competition, writing the same thing that we're writing in certain segments of their town. So again, all I could say is give us a try.
How do you bind a quote? Cassie has asked. So Cassie, I can kind of ask this one. Once Snyder finishes a quote, it'll send it back over to you. At that point, what you're going to want to do is in Appulate, there will be a bind button, but before that, there's going to be a request for appointment button. What you will need to do is click that request for appointment button, and then you will go in to Snyder's kind of portal inside Appulate, and you'll be able to request the documents needed in order to do your appointment. We've set it up in such a way where you can do everything inside the Appulate system to request your appointment. And then within, I'm going to say 24 hours, Lloyd, 24, 48 hours, they'll get that appointment approved. And then once that's been approved, you'll be able to click the bind button in Appulate and go through the binding process inside of Appulate.
And you'll actually get the physical policy.
Yep.
Yeah. You'll be good.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And Cassie, if you need any assistance with any of this, Lloyd's going to be Lloyd or Kyle is going to be reaching out to you after today. But my email is D as in David, King, K-I-N-G, @appulate.com. I'm happy to walk you through any parts of the system you're having trouble with. If you have any troubles doing any of these quotes, feel free to reach out to me. Additionally, we do webinars monthly. I can also email you directly and send you a link to some webinars that we do for just basic agent training on how to use the system, where we go through how to bind, certificates, all of that stuff. So if you're interested in that, I can certainly send that over to you.
And that's why we want to.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. We do really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hopefully you guys have some business we can send over to Go By Flood and get them some business rolling through. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to email us. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kyle.